poor mechanic repairs a broken tractor, unaware it belongs to a billionaire farm heiress. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden streaks across the endless fields of wheat. The air smelled of freshly tilled soil and the faintest hint of an incoming storm. Noah Carter had spent most of his life with his hands covered in grease, fixing broken things, engines, tractors, old farm trucks that had seen better days. But the one thing he had never been able to fix was himself. He never expected to stop on a dusty country road one evening and find a woman staring at a broken-down tractor like it had personally offended her. And he certainly never expected that woman to be Emma Sinclair, the heir to a billion-dollar farming empire, though she wasn't about to tell him that. What started as a simple act of kindness, a mechanic helping a stranded farmer, quickly unraveled into something neither of them could have predicted. Love, trust, and the realization that sometimes the things we try hardest to push away are exactly what we need the most. But love is never simple, especially when secrets, fear, and the weight of the past threaten to pull them apart. Will Emma prove that she belongs in this life she's chosen? Will Noah finally stop running from the one thing he truly wants? And most importantly, will love be enough to fix what's been broken for too long? If you love stories about second chances, slow burn romance, and the magic of unexpected love, then you won't want to miss this one. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single chapter. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive into the story of The Farmer's Secret. This opening grabs the audience with mystery, emotion, and the promise of an unforgettable love story, while also smoothly integrating the call to action. Would you like any tweaks before I finalize it? The late afternoon sun stretched golden streaks across the sky as Noah Carter drove down the dusty rural road in his old Ford pickup. The windows were rolled down, letting in the crisp autumn air mixed with the scent of dry hay and freshly turned soil. His work boots tapped lightly against the pedals, and his calloused hands gripped the wheel, the result of years spent fixing engines, welding steel, and pulling more than his fair share of late nights in the garage. It was supposed to be a simple drive, just a quick run into town to pick up a few parts for a neighbor's combine harvester. But fate had a habit of throwing surprises his way. Up ahead, near the bend in the road, a battered John Deere tractor sat motionless, its front left tire buried halfway in the loose dirt. A woman stood beside it, hands on her hips, frustration evident in the way she shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Noah sighed. Most people in this town knew their way around farm equipment, but occasionally newcomers moved in, thinking they could handle country life without knowing a thing about tractors, irrigation, or livestock. Judging by the woman's attire, worn jeans, dusty boots, and a flannel shirt rolled up to her elbows, she was at least trying to look the part. Still, the way she stared at the engine like it had personally insulted her told him everything he needed to know. Pulling his truck over, he stepped out, brushing off the dust from his jeans. "You need a hand?" The woman turned, startled by his voice. Green eyes met his, sharp, intelligent, but guarded. Her blonde hair was tied back into a loose ponytail, strands of it escaping to frame her sun-kissed face. She looked like she belonged on a ranch, but something about her, her posture maybe, or the way she carried herself, hinted at something different. She hesitated, glancing at the tractor. It just stopped. "I have no idea what's wrong." Noah smirked. "Well, that's a good start. You mind if I take a look?" She stepped aside, crossing her arms as she watched him. Noah climbed up and popped the hood, the familiar scent of diesel and old grease greeting him. He inspected the fuel line, checked the battery connections, and within minutes found the culprit, a clogged fuel filter. "Looks like you've got some gunk in here," he said, wiping his hands on a rag he pulled from his back pocket. Not a big deal, but it's not going to start unless we clean it out." The woman exhaled sharply. "Figures." And here I was, thinking it might magically fix itself. He chuckled. "Machines don't do magic, lady, but lucky for you, I do." She raised an eyebrow, a small smirk playing at her lips. "Oh, you're a mechanic and a magician?" "Something like that." He crouched down, grabbed his toolbox from the truck and got to work. As he worked, she studied him, her curiosity growing. This man wasn't like the business executives she'd known all her life. He had a quiet confidence, a steadiness in his hands that suggested years of experience and hard work. "What's your name?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Noah," he replied without looking up. "Noah Carter." "I'm Emma," she said. She hesitated before adding, "Emma Sinclair." The name meant nothing to him. Good. She was used to people recognizing her last name, Sinclair, as in Sinclair Farms, one of the largest agricultural conglomerates in the country. But Noah didn't flinch, didn't give her that look of recognition or assumption. He just nodded, tightening the last bolt. "All right, Emma, try it now." She climbed up into the driver's seat, turned the key, and the tractor roared back to life. Relief flooded her face, and she shot him a grateful smile. "You really are a magician. Just a guy who knows his way around engines." He tossed his wrench back into his toolbox. "You new to this area?" Emma hesitated. She wasn't used to being questioned like this. But there was something about Noah, his easygoing nature, the way he didn't pry too much, that made her want to answer. "Yeah, just moved in a couple of weeks ago. Bought a small farm down the road." He raised an eyebrow. "You running it alone?" "For now," she said. Noah let out a low whistle. "That's a lot of work for one person." "I'm figuring it out," she said, lifting her chin slightly, as if daring him to challenge her. He liked that. She had grit. "Well," he said, shutting the hood of the tractor, "figuring it out might go a little smoother if you've got someone who actually knows what they're doing around." She narrowed her eyes playfully. "Are you offering?" Noah chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm just saying I fix machines for a living. If you ever need help, I'm around." Emma studied him for a long moment before nodding. "I might take you up on that." She climbed down, dusting off her hands. "How much do I owe you?" Noah waved her off. "Nothing, just helping out a neighbor." Emma frowned. She wasn't used to people doing things without expecting something in return. In her world, every favor came with a price. But here, standing, in the middle of a dusty road, with a man who barely knew her, she was seeing something different. "Thank you," she said, and she meant it. Noah nodded, tipping the brim of his baseball cap. "Take care, Emma." With that, he climbed back into his truck, started the engine, and pulled back onto the road, leaving Emma standing beside her now functional tractor, watching him go. For the first time in a long time, she felt something unexpected, a sense of hope, and she had a feeling this wouldn't be the last time she saw Noah Carter. The next morning, Noah Carter was elbow-deep in the engine of an old pickup truck when a familiar voice called out from behind him, "Noah Carter, right?" He wiped his hands on a rag before turning around. Emma Sinclair stood there, her blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail, strands of it blowing in the morning breeze. She looked different in the daylight, less like a stranded farmer and more like someone with a determined purpose. "Depends on who's asking," Noah said, leaning casually against the truck. Emma smirked. "The woman whose tractor you fixed." "Yesterday," Noah chuckled, tossing the rag onto his workbench. "Ah, right. Thought you looked familiar. What brings you to my humble garage?" Emma hesitated for a second, as if she wasn't used to asking for help. Then she exhaled. "I need a mechanic." Noah raised an eyebrow. "Well, you found one. What's the problem?" Emma shifted on her feet. "Everything." Noah folded his arms. "That bad, huh?" She let out a short laugh. "Worse. My irrigation system is malfunctioning. The grain silo needs maintenance, and, this is the best part, one of my generators is making a sound that I can only describe as dying. Noah gave her a knowing look. And let me guess, you don't have a crew to fix all that? Emma's expression grew more serious. Not yet. I wanted to run the place myself first, see what I could handle. Noah nodded slowly, taking in her words. It was clear she wasn't just some city girl playing farmer. She actually wanted to do this. He had to admit, he respected that. So, what do you need from me? He asked. Emma squared her shoulders. I want to hire you. Noah blinked. Hire me? Yes. To help maintain the farm, keep the machines running, at least for a little while, until I get things under control. Noah exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair. He had plenty of work at the garage, but something about the way Emma looked at him, like she wasn't used to needing people, but she was willing to ask anyway, made him pause. How many acres we talking? He asked. Emma hesitated before answering. A little over 200, Noah whistled. That's not exactly a small farm. I know, Emma admitted. I bit off more than I can chew, but I'm not giving up. Noah studied her then, glanced toward the garage. His business was steady, but nothing exciting ever happened in this town. Maybe a change of pace wouldn't be so bad. Finally, he sighed. All right, Sinclair. I'll help out, but on one condition. Emma crossed her arms. And that is, no micromanaging. If I'm going to fix something, I do it my way. Emma smirked. Fine, but if I want to learn, you have to teach me. Noah chuckled. Fair enough. They shook hands, and Emma felt a strange jolt, not just from the roughness of his calloused palm, but from the simple honesty in his grip. This was the first time in years she had hired someone without a contract, a legal team, or background checks. Just a handshake and trust. She liked it. A half-hour later, Noah followed Emma's old Ford Bronco down a winding dirt road leading to her farm. The drive itself was scenic, wide-open fields stretching toward the horizon, the morning sun casting long shadows over golden crops. But as they pulled up to the main barn, it became obvious that the farm was in worse shape than she'd let on. The irrigation system had leaks, the fence line was broken in places, and a silo had rust along its base. Several pieces of farm equipment were either covered in dust or half disassembled, as if someone had started fixing them but gave up halfway. Noah let out a low whistle. Well, you weren't kidding. Emma exhaled. Yeah, welcome to the disaster. Noah climbed out of his truck, walking toward the old generator sitting by the barn. He crouched beside it, listening to the low, erratic hum. A moment later, he stood and wiped his hands. Well, the good news is, nothing here is beyond repair, he said. Emma arched an eyebrow. And the bad news? It's gonna take time. Emma nodded. I've got time. Noah turned to her. What made you do this? Emma hesitated, then shrugged. I wanted a change. He didn't buy it. Nobody buys a 200-acre farm just because they want a change. But he didn't push. Instead, he grabbed his toolbox from his truck. All right, boss. Where do you want me to start? Emma smiled. For the first time since she'd arrived at the farm, she felt like she wasn't in this alone. For the next few hours, Noah worked his way through the worst of the mechanical issues, while Emma shadowed him. She watched as he patched a broken pipe, adjusted the old irrigation valves, and inspected the generator's failing components. His movements were effortless, confident, like a man who had done this 1,000 times. At one point, Emma rolled up her sleeves and tried to help. She held the wrench awkwardly, clearly unused to manual labor, but Noah didn't laugh. Instead, he took the wrench from her and guided her hands. Here, twist from your shoulders, not just your wrist, otherwise you'll lose leverage. Emma followed his instructions and was surprised when the bolt finally loosened. Huh, That actually worked. Noah smirked. I do know a thing or two. The day stretched long, but by sunset they had made real progress. The generator was fixed, the irrigation system was running better, and a broken fence post had been replaced. Emma wiped sweat from her forehead, exhausted but satisfied. This is the most productive day I've had since I got here. Noah chuckled, wiping his hands on his jeans. That's because you had help. Emma turned to him. And why did you help? Noah met her gaze. Because you needed it. Emma's breath caught for a second. It was such a simple answer, but it carried a weight she wasn't used to. Back in her old life, nothing was done without motive. Every favor had a price. But Noah? He was helping simply because he was a good man. She looked out over the farm, the sky painted in hues of pink and gold. Maybe, just maybe, she'd made the right decision coming here, and maybe Noah Carter was going to be part of that decision in ways she hadn't expected. The next few days at Emma Sinclair's farm were an exhausting blur of repairs, dust and sweat. Noah Carter worked tirelessly, moving from one broken-down machine to another, fixing things with the ease of a man who had spent years getting his hands dirty. Emma, despite her lack of experience, refused to stand idly by. She was determined to learn, even if it meant getting grease on her hands and sore muscles by the end of each day, and Noah had to admit he admired her persistence. He had seen people give up on farm life before, thinking it was all about golden sunsets and Instagram-worthy fields of wheat. Emma? She was different. She wasn't afraid of hard work, and more importantly, she was willing to get back up after making mistakes. It was a good kind of stubbornness. One afternoon, as Noah tightened the last bolt on the rusty irrigation pump, he turned to see Emma struggling with a bale of hay near the barn. She grunted, pushing against it with her entire body weight, but it barely budged. Noah chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag as he walked over. You planning on moving that thing, or just wrestling it? Emma blew a strand of hair from her face, glaring up at him. I've got this. He crossed his arms. Uh-huh. You want a tip? She sighed dramatically. Fine. Enlighten me. He knelt beside her and gestured toward the bale. It's not about strength, it's about leverage. He grabbed a pitchfork, dug it under the hay, and lifted one side. The weight shifted, making it significantly easier to move. Emma blinked. That's ridiculously simple. Why didn't I think of that? Noah smirked. Because you're too busy trying to fight it instead of working with it. Emma shot him a playful glare. You sound like one of those wise old cowboys in the movies. Darling, I'm not that old, Noah said with a chuckle. Emma laughed, a real, unrestrained laugh, and for a second Noah was caught off guard. It had been a long time since he had heard that sound. Pure, genuine joy. Something about it stirred. Something deep in his chest. But before he could figure out what, Emma grabbed the pitchfork and said, All right, Cowboy Carter, show me more farm hacks. Noah raised an eyebrow. Cowboy Carter? She grinned. You work on a farm. You're basically a cowboy now. He let out a long sigh, shaking his head. You're impossible, she winked. You're just figuring that out. And just like that, the weight of the long day seemed a little lighter. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Noah finished cleaning up his tools in the barn when he heard Emma's voice behind him. Hey, you busy? He turned, to see her standing in the doorway, a hesitant expression on her face. Noah shrugged. If you got another machine that needs fixing, I might start charging you overtime. Emma smirked. No machines this time, just dinner. Noah frowned slightly. Dinner? She nodded. Yeah. As a thank you, you've been helping me non-stop, and I figure the least I can do is feed you. Noah hesitated. He wasn't used to people thanking him like this, but there was something genuine in Emma's offer, and after a long day's work, a home-cooked meal sounded pretty damn good. All right, he said, setting down his wrench. What's on the menu? Emma's face lit up. I have no idea. Noah blinked. Wait, what? She laughed. I mean, I can cook. Kind of. I figured we'd figure it out together. Noah gave her a look. So let me get this straight. You're inviting me to dinner, but you don't know what we're eating. Emma grinned. Yep. Still interested? Noah sighed, shaking his head. You're lucky I'm too tired to argue. Emma beamed. Great, come on. The kitchen inside Emma's farmhouse was warm, cozy, and surprisingly well kept, despite the rest of the property needing work. Noah leaned against the counter, watching as Emma rummaged through the fridge. Okay, she said, pulling out ingredients. I have eggs, bacon, some vegetables, and an embarrassing amount of cheese. Noah chuckled. Looks like we're making omelets. Emma turned to him, arms crossed. You cook? Spent a lot of time taking care of myself, Noah said simply. Something about the way he said it made Emma pause. Taking care of himself. She could tell he wasn't just talking about cooking. For a moment, neither of them said anything, but then Noah clapped his hands. All right, Sinclair, grab a pan. Emma rolled her eyes, but did as he said. As they worked together, something unexpected happened. They fell into an easy rhythm. Noah chopping vegetables, Emma cracking eggs, with only a few minor shell-related incidents, and both of them trading stories between bites of stolen cheese. At one point, Emma caught Noah looking at her, an unreadable expression on his face. What? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Noah shook his head. Nothing, just, I don't think I've ever met someone like you before. Emma smirked. That's either a compliment or an insult. Noah chuckled. Compliment. Definitely a compliment. Emma pretended to wipe sweat off her forehead. Whew, I was worried for a second. He laughed, and for the first time in a long time, he realized how much he enjoyed this. The easy conversation, the laughter, the feeling of not being alone. It was something he hadn't let himself feel in years. And as they sat down to eat, he knew deep down that meeting Emma Sinclair was going to change things. He just didn't know how much. The next morning, Noah Carter arrived at the farm, just as the first rays of sunlight kissed the horizon. The smell of fresh earth and dew still clung to the air, and the distant hum of insects was the only sound breaking the morning stillness. He had expected Emma to still be inside, maybe having her morning coffee or struggling through another attempt at farm life. Instead, she was already outside, standing by the broken fence at the edge of the property, staring into the distance with a troubled look on her face. Noah frowned, wiping his hands on his jeans before walking over. Something wrong? He asked. Emma jumped slightly at his voice, as if she hadn't noticed his arrival. She quickly composed herself, offering a small smile. Too small, too forced. No, everything's fine, she said, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. Noah didn't buy it. He'd spent enough time around people who carried the weight of things they weren't willing to say out loud. He leaned against the fence post beside her. You don't look fine, Emma sighed, crossing her arms over her chest. She hesitated before finally admitting, I got a call from my father last night. Noah didn't say anything, but he could feel the shift in her energy, the tension in her shoulders, the way she suddenly seemed smaller, like she was bracing for something. What did he want? He asked carefully. Emma exhaled. To remind me that this whole farm thing is just a phase, that I'll get bored, fail, and come running back to take my rightful place at Sinclair Enterprises. Noah tilted his head, studying her. And what do you think? Emma looked up at him, green eyes conflicted. I don't know. Some days, I feel like I can do this. Other days, I wonder if he's right. She gestured toward the land. This is a real farm with real problems. What if I'm just pretending? Noah's gaze softened. He knew that feeling, the doubt, the weight of expectation. You don't strike me as the type to quit, he said simply. Emma let out a small laugh, shaking her head. You barely know me. Noah shrugged. I know enough. Silence stretched between them, comfortable yet charged. Then Emma straightened her shoulders. I should get back to work. Noah nodded. Good, because we've got a long day ahead. By midday, the heat was unbearable. The sun sat high in the sky, beating down on the land, and sweat dripped from Noah's forehead as he worked on the old grain silo's maintenance system. Emma was beside him, trying her best to keep up, but he could see she was struggling. Take a break, Noah said, not looking up from his work. I'm fine, she insisted, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. Noah gave her a look. You're 2 minutes away from passing out. Sit down. Emma huffed, but finally gave in, plopping onto an overturned crate nearby. Noah handed her his water bottle, and she took it without hesitation. Thanks, she murmured, taking a sip. Noah sat beside her, stretching out his sore muscles. They sat in silence for a moment, both catching their breath. Then Emma spoke. You ever feel like you were meant for something different? Noah's jaw tightened slightly. Yeah, he admitted. I did once. Emma turned to him, waiting. Noah sighed, running a hand through his hair. This wasn't something he talked about often. I wanted to open my own shop, he finally said. Not just repairs, a full-scale mechanics workshop, custom builds, restorations. I had plans. Emma studied him. What happened? Noah's fingers tightened slightly around the water bottle. Life happened. Emma didn't press, sensing there was more to the story. Instead, she simply said, It's not too late, you know. Noah chuckled, shaking his head. Dreams cost money, Sinclair, and time. I've got neither. Emma tilted her head. Or maybe you just don't want to risk failing. Noah looked at her then, really looked at her. She saw more than most people did. He let out a slow breath, smirking. You sure you weren't a therapist in another life? Emma grinned. Nope, just someone who's also trying to figure things out. Noah shook his head with a small chuckle. She was something else. Later that afternoon, as they worked on the south fence line, Noah noticed Emma struggling to hammer in a replacement post. She was frustrated, her movements rushed and uneven. Slow. Down, he advised. Emma scowled. I know what I'm doing. Noah raised an eyebrow. Do you? Emma shot him a glare. Yes. Then she swung the hammer too hard, missed the nail completely, and nearly hit her own hand. Noah grabbed the hammer from her before she could do any more damage. Jesus, Sinclair, are you trying to break your fingers? Emma snatched her hand back, eyes flashing. I don't need you babysitting me. Noah let out a frustrated breath. I'm not babysitting you, I'm trying to help. But if you'd rather break your hand, be my guest. Emma crossed her arms. You think I can't do this? Noah shook his head. I think you're too damn stubborn to admit when you need help. Emma's jaw clenched. Maybe I don't want to be another rich girl who needs someone to hold her hand. Noah's expression hardened. And maybe I don't want to watch you fail, because you're too proud to accept help. Silence fell between them. Emma exhaled, her frustration cooling slightly. I don't want to prove my father right. Noah softened at that. You won't, he said, but not because you're trying to prove him wrong. You'll do it because you want this. That's the only reason that matters. Emma stared at him, something unreadable in her gaze. Finally she let out a small, tired laugh. You're really annoying, you know that? Noah smirked. It's part of my charm. Emma rolled her eyes but didn't argue. Instead, she picked up the hammer, this time letting Noah guide her movements. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The next morning, Noah Carter arrived at Emma's farm earlier than usual. The sky was painted in soft hues of lavender and pink, the air crisp with the scent of damp soil and morning dew. It was the kind of peaceful silence that only existed. Before the world fully woke up, he expected to find Emma inside, maybe nursing a cup of coffee before another long day of trying to prove herself to a farm that didn't care where she came from. But instead, she was already outside, standing by the barn, hands on her hips, staring at the generator with an expression of pure murder. Noah sighed, already bracing himself. Morning, Sinclair, he called, stepping closer. What did the generator do to deserve that look? Emma turned to him, her eyes sharp. It stopped working, Noah smirked. That's usually what broken things do. She shot him a glare. It was fine last night and now it won't start. I checked. The fuel, the wiring, everything. Noah stepped beside her and crouched down to inspect the old machine. Within seconds, he saw the problem. A loose connection in the ignition system. He shook his head, suppressing a chuckle. Emma, did you mess with this last night? Emma hesitated. Define mess with. Noah groaned. Sinclair. She threw up her hands. I just wanted to check if I could fix it myself. Isn't that what you keep telling me? That I need to learn? Noah rubbed a hand over his face, trying not to laugh. Yeah, but maybe we start with something a little less critical than the thing keeping half your farm running. Emma crossed, her arms looking away. I wanted to see if I could do it. Noah exhaled, his teasing expression softening. He knew what this was really about. She wasn't just trying to fix a generator, she was trying to prove to herself that she belonged here. Without a word, he grabbed his toolbox and set to work. Emma watched as Noah expertly reconnected the wires, his hands steady and sure. He worked like someone who had done this 1,000 times before, someone who understood machines the way she wished she understood this farm. Okay, Noah said, handing her a wrench. Your turn. Emma blinked. Wait, really? Noah nodded. Yeah, you wanted to learn, right? Emma hesitated, then took the wrench, crouching beside him. The warmth of his body was close, too close, and she forced herself to focus on the generator instead of the way her pulse reacted to his presence. Loosen that bolt first, he instructed. Then we'll reconnect the ground wire. Emma did as he said, biting her lip in concentration. It wasn't perfect, and she fumbled a little, but Noah was patient, guiding her without taking over. Good, he said when she finished. Now try starting it. Emma wiped her hands on her jeans before flipping the switch. The generator sputtered, coughed, then roared back to life. Emma's face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Oh my God, I did it. Noah smirked. Well, technically we did it, but I'll let you take the credit this time. Emma turned to him, grinning. I'm taking all the credit. Noah chuckled, shaking his head. For the first time since she'd started this whole crazy journey, Emma felt like she was actually getting somewhere. That afternoon, as Emma and Noah worked on repairing the cattle fencing, a sleek black SUV rumbled down the dirt road leading to the farm. Noah noticed Emma stiffen immediately. Friend of yours? He asked, nodding toward the approaching vehicle. Emma's expression was unreadable. Not exactly. The SUV came to a stop, and a well-dressed man in a tailored suit stepped out. He looked completely out of place against the backdrop of the farm, the polished shoes, the crisp white shirt, the air of someone who never had to lift anything heavier than a pen. Noah instantly didn't like him. Emma, the man greeted. A cool smile on his face, Emma crossed her arms. Logan. Noah leaned against the fence, watching the exchange with curiosity. Who the hell was this guy? Logan adjusted his cuffs, glancing around the farm with thinly veiled disapproval. Your father asked me to check in on you. Emma's jaw tightened. Of course he did. Noah could feel the tension rolling off her in waves. He didn't know much about Emma's past, but it was clear that Logan represented the world she had left behind. Your father is willing to make you a deal, Logan continued. Come back to Sinclair Enterprises. He'll buy you whatever farm you want, one with actual infrastructure, real staff. You don't have to struggle like this. Emma's fists clenched at her sides. Noah saw it before she even spoke, the moment she made her decision. No, she said firmly. I'm not interested. Logan's smirk faltered. Emma, be reasonable. This isn't who you are. Emma took a step forward, her voice steady. You don't get to decide that. For the first time, Noah saw it. Not just determination, but conviction. Logan sighed, shaking his head. "You're making a mistake." Emma didn't flinch. "Maybe, but at least it'll be mine to make." Without another word, Logan turned and got back into the SUV. The tires kicked up dust as he sped away, leaving only silence in his wake. Noah exhaled, watching Emma carefully. "You okay?" Emma turned to him, and to his surprise, she smiled. "Yeah," she said. "I think I am." That evening, as they finished putting away the tools, Noah finally broke the silence. "So, Logan, huh?" Emma sighed, rolling her eyes. "He's my father's right-hand man. Grew up with him breathing down my neck, telling me how to behave and what my future was supposed to look like." Noah nodded. "And what's that future supposed to be?" Emma smirked, but there was an edge of sadness to it. Boardrooms, power suits, fancy cocktail parties where no one actually likes each other. Noah frowned. "Sounds miserable." Emma shrugged. "That's why I left." Noah studied her for a long moment, then simply said, "Good." Emma blinked. "Good?" He nodded. "Yeah. It takes guts to walk away from something safe. Not a lot of people would." Emma looked at him, searching his face for any sign of judgment. But there was none. Instead, there was understanding, and that, more than anything, made her chest feel warm in a way she wasn't ready to acknowledge. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Noah turned back toward the barn. "Come on, Sinclair. We've got work to do tomorrow." Emma watched him go, a small smile tugging at her lips. Maybe she didn't have everything figured out yet, but she was starting to believe she was exactly where she was meant to be. The sky had been threatening rain all day. Thick, heavy clouds rolled across the horizon, darkening the late afternoon sky and casting a sense of unease over the fields. The air was thick with humidity, and the wind carried the faint scent of rain, a warning of what was coming. Noah Carter stood outside the barn, hands on his hips, watching the shifting clouds. Years of working on farms had taught him one thing. When the air gets this still, a storm isn't far behind. "Emma," he called toward the farmhouse, "we need to start tying things down before the wind picks up." Emma emerged from inside, frowning as she followed his gaze toward the sky. "You think it's going to be bad?" Noah nodded. "Could be. No. Use waiting to find out." Without hesitation, they got to work. The easy rhythm they had built over the last few weeks made the task feel natural, like they had been working together for years instead of just days. They secured loose equipment, reinforced the barn doors, and made sure the cattle had shelter. But as the first rumble of thunder echoed across the sky, a new problem presented itself. Emma was tightening a rope on the feed shed when she suddenly froze. "Noah!" she called, her voice tight. He turned and saw it immediately. One of the pasture gates had swung wide open, and the cattle were escaping. "Damn it!" Noah didn't waste time cursing. He grabbed Emma's wrist, already moving. "Come on!" They sprinted across the field, the wind picking up around them, kicking up dust as they ran. The cattle, spooked by the incoming storm, were already scattering, their hooves pounding. Against the earth, Emma's heart pounded as she tried to process everything at once. "What do we do?" she shouted over the wind. Noah's mind worked fast. "We need to get them back inside the fence before the storm gets worse. If they scatter too far, we'll never find them all." Emma nodded, determination hardening in her eyes. "Tell me what to do." Noah grabbed a nearby length of rope and handed it to her. "Cut off their path. Guide them back. Don't chase them head-on, or they'll run in the wrong direction." Emma took a deep breath and nodded. This was her farm, her responsibility. She could do this. And then the sky cracked open. The storm came down fast and merciless. Rain pounded against them, drenching their clothes in seconds. The wind howled, bending the trees, rattling the barn doors, and making the cattle even more panicked. Noah moved fast, weaving through the herd, waving his arms and calling out to them in a deep, steady voice. Animals reacted to confidence, not fear, and right now they needed to trust him. Emma mirrored his movements on the other side, her adrenaline overriding her exhaustion. Thunder roared overhead. A bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, hitting a tree in the distance, sending an explosion of sparks and smoke into the air. One of the cows bolted toward the open road. Noah's stomach dropped. "Emma, go right! Cut it off before it gets too far!" Emma didn't hesitate. She sprinted forward, ignoring the mud, ignoring the rain, ignoring the way her breath burned in her lungs. This was it. Either she acted now, or she lost control of the herd. This was her moment. She threw out the rope just like Noah had taught her. The loop caught perfectly around the cow's neck, stopping its momentum just enough for her to redirect it. Noah watched in shock, and then, for the first time that night, he grinned. "Not bad, Sinclair," he called. Emma shot him a breathless look, rain dripping from her hair. "I learned from the best, Cowboy Carter." By the time they got the cattle back inside the fences, they were both soaked, exhausted, and covered in mud. The storm raged on around them, but the worst of the danger had passed. Emma leaned against the barn wall, catching her breath. "That was insane," Noah exhaled heavily, running a hand through his wet hair. "Yeah, but you did good." Emma looked up at him, something unreadable in her expression. Something softer, something more. For a long moment neither of them spoke. The rain drummed against the barn's tin roof, the only sound between them. Noah saw it then, the way her breath hitched slightly, the way her fingers trembled not from the cold, but from something else. He stepped closer. "You all right?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Emma swallowed, nodding. "Yeah, just adrenaline, I guess." Noah studied her, his blue eyes searching hers. Emma. She knew what he was about to say, knew what was happening between them, had been happening for a while now, but was she ready for it? She started, but before she could finish, Noah reached out, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. The world narrowed down to this moment. The space between them shrunk, the storm outside somehow making the air between them even heavier. Emma's breath caught. And then she stepped back. Noah froze. Emma looked away, her voice quieter now. "We should get inside." Noah held her gaze for a second longer, just long enough for Emma to know he wasn't buying whatever excuse she was about to give, but he nodded anyway. "Yeah, we should." And just like that, the moment was gone. That night, Emma didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart still racing for reasons that had nothing to do with the storm, because tonight had changed something, not just on the farm, not just in herself, but between her and Noah. And for the first time since she arrived, she wasn't sure if she was ready to face what came next. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the farm drenched in the scent of wet earth and fresh rain. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, as if trying to make up for the chaos of the night before. Emma Sinclair stood on the farmhouse porch, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, staring out at the land she had fought so hard to keep under control. Everything was still, but her mind wasn't. She had barely slept. Not because of the storm, not because of the work that still needed to be done, but because of the moment in the barn, the way Noah had looked at her, the way his touch had lingered just a second too long. She had stepped back. She had walked away. And now she wasn't sure if that had been the right thing to do. The sound of footsteps on gravel pulled her from her thoughts. She turned just as Noah approached, his shirt slightly damp from the morning mist, his hair still tousled from sleep. He looked as tired as she felt. "Morning," he said, his voice rough. Emma cleared her throat. "Morning." For a second, neither of them said anything. The tension from last night still hung between them, unspoken but undeniable. Finally Noah exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I checked the fences. The cattle are fine. Looks like we got lucky." Emma nodded. "Good." More silence. Noah's jaw clenched. He wasn't the kind of man to tiptoe around things, and Emma could tell that he was done pretending nothing had happened last night. She wasn't ready for this. "We should get started on the south field," she said quickly before he could say anything else. "Some of the drainage ditches might have overflowed." Noah studied her for a long moment, his blue eyes sharp, reading her like a book she didn't want to open. But he nodded. "Yeah, let's get to work." And just like that, the subject was avoided. For now, Emma threw herself into work, hoping if she kept moving she wouldn't have to think. She and Noah spent the day repairing the field's irrigation system, clearing out debris left by the storm, and checking for any damage to the farm's infrastructure. And for the first time since Noah had started working here, it felt different. The easy rhythm they had built over the past few weeks was off-kilter. Conversations that usually flowed effortlessly now felt forced. Jokes that would have made them laugh before fell flat. It was as if they were both trying too. Hard to pretend nothing had changed, when in reality everything had. At one point, Emma caught Noah watching her, not with frustration, not with judgment, but with something else, something that made her stomach tighten. But instead of acknowledging it, she looked away. Noah sighed and went back to work. As the sun began to set, Emma trudged back to the house, her body aching from the long day. She was about to pour herself a glass of water when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Her father. Her heart skipped a beat. For a moment she considered ignoring it, but she knew better. If she didn't answer, he would just keep calling. Taking a deep breath, she swiped to accept. "Emma," her father's voice came through, calm, composed, and far too controlled. "Dad," she said, keeping her voice steady. "I heard about the storm." Emma frowned. "From who?" "Logan." "Of course, I'm fine," she said. "The farm is fine." Her father sighed. "Emma, this is exactly what I was talking about. You don't belong there. A Sinclair doesn't waste their life playing farmer." Emma gritted her teeth. "I'm not playing." Her father's voice remained calm, but she knew him well enough to hear the irritation beneath it. "You're struggling. You're working yourself to exhaustion. And for what? Some misplaced sense of independence?" Emma's grip on the phone tightened. He would never understand. "I'm building something," she said. "Something real. Something that's mine." Her father scoffed. "And what about when you fail?" Emma closed her eyes, inhaling slowly. She had spent her entire life trying to prove herself to this man, and no matter what she did, it was never enough. Not anymore. "Then I'll fail," she said, her voice firm. "And I'll get back up again." A beat of silence. Then her father sighed. "You are so much like your mother." The words knocked the breath from her lungs. Before Emma could respond, her father's voice softened. Just slightly. "I just don't want you to throw your life away on something that won't last." Emma swallowed. "That's my choice to make." Another pause. Then, "Very well, I won't stop you." It was the closest thing to a concession her father had ever given her. The call ended, and Emma slowly lowered the phone, her heart pounding. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had truly stood her ground, and it felt good. That night Noah found Emma sitting on the porch, staring up at the sky. He didn't ask if she was okay. He just sat down beside her. For a while neither of them spoke. Then Noah finally said, "You don't have to tell me what that call was about." Emma sighed. "It was my father, trying to talk me out of this. Again." Noah didn't react. He just nodded, as if he had expected it. After a moment, Emma looked at him. "Do you think I'm crazy for doing this?" Noah met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "No," he said. "I think you're brave." Emma's breath hitched. He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, and for the first time, she believed it. The tension between them from earlier in the day melted away, but as much as Emma wanted to let herself fall into the moment, fear still lingered. Because if there was one thing she had learned in life, it was that when you let yourself care too much, you give someone the power to hurt you, and that scared her more than any storm ever could. The late summer sun beat down on the farm, casting long shadows across the fields. The days were growing shorter, signaling the slow approach of autumn. But for Emma Sinclair, time felt like it was speeding up. The farm was running smoother than before, thanks to Noah. She had learned more in the past few weeks than she ever imagined. How to fix an irrigation line, how to calm a spooked horse, how to weld a broken fence. But there was one thing she hadn't figured out yet: how to deal with Noah Carter. Ever since the storm, something between them had shifted. It wasn't just the stolen glances or the way their conversations lingered a little longer than necessary. It was the way her chest tightened whenever he looked at her, like he saw straight through her, and it was getting harder and harder to ignore. That morning, Noah was working under the hood of the old farm truck when Emma approached, hands on her hips. "Hey, Carter," she said casually. Noah smirked without looking up. "You only call me Carter when you're about to ask for something." Emma rolled her eyes. "I have a proposition." Noah wiped his hands on a rag before leaning against the truck. "I'm listening." She hesitated for half a second before saying, "Come to the town fair with me tonight." Noah blinked, caught off guard. "The fair?" "Yeah," Emma said, shifting her weight slightly. "I figured we've been working non-stop. We could use a break. Besides, I heard there's a pie-eating contest, and I'd really love to see you embarrass yourself." Noah chuckled, shaking his head. "You think I'd lose?" Emma smirked. "I think you'd be too stubborn to admit defeat." Noah studied her for a long moment. She was trying to keep things light, trying to keep that invisible wall between them from crumbling, and maybe he should have let it stand. But instead, he nodded. "All right, Sinclair, you're on." Emma's face lit up in a way that made his chest ache, and just like that he knew this was a mistake. Because the more time he spent with her, the harder it was going to be when he eventually had to let her go. The town fair was exactly what Noah expected. Colorful lights strung across the trees, the scent of fried food hanging thick in the warm night air, and the distant laughter of families enjoying the evening. But what he hadn't expected was Emma. She was wearing a simple sundress, her blonde hair loosely braided over one shoulder. She looked nothing like the woman who had been knee-deep in mud and grease all week. She looked carefree, radiant, and for the first time Noah wondered, had she ever really had nights like this before? Emma caught him staring and smirked. "What? Never seen a girl in a dress before?" Noah chuckled. "Not one that was throwing hay bales yesterday." Emma rolled her eyes but laughed, leading the way into the fair. They walked through the booths, sampling food, watching kids sprint past with cotton candy, and pretending they weren't stealing glances at each other every other minute. It was too easy to forget why he had built walls around himself, too easy to imagine what it would be like if things were different. And when Emma grabbed his hand, dragging him toward the Ferris wheel, he didn't stop her. The Ferris wheel creaked and swayed gently as their cart rose higher into the night sky. Below them, the town fair stretched out in a blur of warm lights and laughter. Emma leaned against the railing, looking out over the horizon. "You know, I never used to do stuff like this." Noah glanced at her. "What, go to fairs?" She shook her head. "Just have a normal night. Be around normal people. No expectations, no responsibilities." Noah frowned slightly. He had grown up thinking people like her had everything. But maybe, in her own way, she had been just as trapped as he had. "You're here now," he said simply. Emma turned to him, her green eyes searching his face. "Yeah, and for the first time in my life, I don't want to be anywhere else." Noah's breath caught, and then she reached for his hand. His fingers twitched, his heart pounding as she laced her fingers through his. as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Noah knew he should pull away. He knew this was dangerous, but when she leaned in, he didn't stop her. Her lips brushed against his, soft and uncertain, a question rather than a demand. And Noah answered. He kissed her back, slow and deep, like he had been waiting for this moment longer than he cared to admit. The world fell away. The fair, the farm, the past, the future. For a few breathless seconds, there was only this, only her, only the feeling of something that terrified him more than anything else ever had, because this wasn't just a kiss. This was the start of something he might not be able to walk away from. The ride stopped, the real world creeping back in. Emma pulled away slowly, searching his face, waiting for him to say something. But Noah was already looking at the ground, already putting walls back up. Emma's heart sank. "Noah," she whispered. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Emma, this is complicated." Her stomach twisted. "Does it have to be?" Noah met her gaze, his expression conflicted. "Torn." "Yes," he said finally. Emma's chest tightened. "Why?" Noah looked away. "Because I don't belong in your world, because I can't give you what you deserve, because I'm already too far gone." But instead he just said, "Because it just does." The Ferris wheel started moving again, carrying them back toward the ground, and by the time they reached the bottom, everything had changed. The ride back from the fair was silent. Emma gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles tight, the echoes of their kiss still burning in her mind. She had thought, for a moment, that Noah might let his guard down, that he might finally admit what was so obvious between them, but he had shut down, again. Noah sat beside her, staring out the window, arms crossed. His jaw was tight, his thoughts a storm she couldn't reach. By the time they pulled up to the farmhouse, Emma had had enough. She killed the engine, turned to him and said, "Are you ever going to tell me what the hell is going on with you?" Noah tensed but didn't answer. Emma scoffed. "You kiss me and then you act like it never happened. You pull away every time we get too close." "Why?" Noah ran a hand over his face. "Emma!" "No," she cut him off, her frustration spilling over. "I'm tired of this game. I'm tired of pretending there's nothing here when we both—" "No, there is. You feel it too. I know you do." Noah finally turned to her, his eyes dark, stormy. "It's not that simple." Emma laughed bitterly. "Of course it is. You either want this or you don't." Silence. That hesitation, that split second before he answered, it told her everything. Emma's chest tightened. "You don't." "Oh, do you?" Noah exhaled, his voice rough. "Emma, No." She shook her head, pushing open the truck door. "Forget it." She climbed out, slamming the door behind her, walking toward the farmhouse, her pulse thundering in her ears. She had been so stupid to think that he might finally let her in, that he might finally choose her. Noah sat in the truck, staring at the empty driver's seat beside him, his chest feeling like it had been torn open. He wanted to go after her, wanted to tell her the truth, but the truth was a damn mess. He had spent years running from things he couldn't fix, his father's debts, his mother's declining health, the responsibility of taking care of everything when the world had already chewed him up and spit him out. And Emma, she was too good, too bright, too much. He had already lost too many people. He couldn't risk losing her, too. So instead of chasing after her, he did what he always did. He sat in the dark and let her walk away. The next morning, Emma was already in the fields before sunrise. She needed to move, needed to do something that would stop her from thinking. But no matter how hard she worked, she couldn't outrun the truth. She cared about Noah Carter, and Noah Carter was too scared to care about her back. She was fixing a broken fence post when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around. "Emma." Noah's voice was rough. She kept working. "If you're here to apologize, don't." Noah sighed. "I'm not here to apologize." Emma let out a bitter laugh. "Of course, you're not." She drove the hammer into the post harder than necessary. She was angry, not just at him, at herself, for wanting something he clearly didn't. "Emma, listen to me," Noah said, stepping closer. She finally turned, dropping the hammer to her side. "No, Noah, you listen." Her voice shook, but she held her ground. "I don't know what you're so afraid of," she said, "but I am done trying to fix whatever's broken in you." Noah flinched. Emma swallowed, forcing herself to keep going. "I gave you every chance to be honest with me, to tell me what's going on inside your head. And all you've done is shut me out." Noah's fingers curled into fists. "I'm trying to protect you." Emma let out a hollow laugh. "From what? You?" Noah exhaled sharply. "Emma, I don't what?" she snapped. "Don't want me? Say it." The words hung in the air, thick and heavy. Noah looked at her, really looked at her, and that was the problem. He wanted her too much. But if he let himself have her, it would destroy them both, so he did the only thing he knew how to do. He lied. "I don't want you," he said, his voice flat. Emma's breath caught. For a moment, she just stood there, as if she wasn't sure she had heard him right. Then something inside her shattered. She nodded slowly, stepping back. "Okay." Noah's chest tightened as she turned, walking away without another word. He wanted to call her back, wanted to tell her the truth, that he wanted her more than he had ever wanted anything in his life. But instead, he let her go, because, in the end, it was easier to break her heart now than to risk breaking it later. Emma didn't see Noah for the rest of the day. Not when she went back to the house, not when she checked the barn, and when she woke up the next morning, expecting him to show up for work like usual. He didn't. It wasn't until she found a note taped to the front door that she realized what he had done. Her hands shook as she unfolded the piece of paper. The message was short, simple, brutal. "I'm leaving. Take care of yourself, Sinclair." Her breath caught. Her heart stopped. He was gone, and this time he wasn't coming back. The days after Noah left felt hollow. The farm still needed tending, the animals still needed care, and the work never stopped. But Emma Sinclair felt like she was moving through a life that wasn't quite hers anymore. She had spent so much time fighting for this place, proving to herself and everyone else that she belonged here. But now, for the first time, she questioned why she had fought so hard, when the one person who had made this place feel like home had walked away. She told herself she should be angry, but all she felt was heartache. It had been 3 weeks since Noah left when Logan showed up at the farm again. Emma had half a mind to ignore him, but he wasn't leaving this time. He leaned against his SUV, arms crossed. "You look like hell," he said. Emma shot him a glare. "Thanks, Logan. Always." "A pleasure," Logan sighed. "Come on, Emma. You think I don't know what's going on? You've been walking around like a ghost since he left." Emma tensed. "This isn't your business." Logan ignored her. "So what's the plan? You just let him go?" Emma's breath hitched. She had spent weeks convincing herself that Noah leaving was for the best, that if he wanted to walk away, she wouldn't be the one begging him to stay. But then Logan said something that shattered all of that. "Has it ever occurred to you that he left because he thinks he's not enough for you?" Emma froze, because it hadn't. She had been so hurt, so angry, that she hadn't stopped to think about why Noah had pushed her away. Logan shook his head. "He's a good man, Emma, but he's spent his whole life thinking he's not worthy of the things he wants." He held her gaze. "And you're the first thing he's ever really wanted." Emma's throat tightened. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan smirked. "Finally." Emma drove straight to town, her heart pounding with every mile. She had no idea what she was going to say. All she knew was that she had spent too long waiting for Noah Carter to come back to her, when she should have been the one running to him. When she pulled up outside his small garage on the edge of town, she saw him, standing outside, wiping grease off his hands, looking as tired and lost as she felt. Her breath caught. This was it. She climbed out of the truck, her legs shaking, but she forced herself forward. Noah saw her before she even spoke, and, for a second, just a second, she saw the way his entire body tensed at the sight of her, like she was the last person he had expected to see, like she was the only person he had been waiting for. Emma swallowed, forcing out the words before she lost her nerve. You left. Noah exhaled. Yeah. Her heart ached, but she lifted her chin. Why? Noah's hands clenched at his sides. Because I thought that was what you needed. Emma took a step closer. And what if you were wrong? Noah's breath hitched. She held his gaze, refusing to let him look away. I don't need saving, Noah, she said softly. I don't need you to protect me from yourself. What I need is you. Noah looked away, his jaw tightening. Emma! She reached out, grabbing his hand, forcing him to see her. No more running, she whispered. Noah let out a shaky breath. Emma, And then she kissed him. Soft at first, a whisper of something uncertain, but then he kissed her back, like a drowning man gasping for air, like he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. When they finally pulled apart, Emma pressed her forehead against his. You're enough, she whispered. You've always been enough. Noah let out a rough laugh, shaking his head. You really are impossible. Emma grinned. Took you long enough to figure that out. Noah exhaled, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her close. I'm sorry I left. Emma's smile softened. Just promise me one thing. Noah brushed a strand of hair from her face. Anything. Next time you're scared, she said, voice steady. Stay. Noah swallowed hard, nodding. I will, and this time he meant it. A week later, Noah was back at the farm, back where he belonged. The sun was setting as they stood outside the barn, watching the sky turn gold and crimson. Emma laced her fingers through his, no hesitation this time. Noah looked at her, finally letting himself believe in this, in her, in them. Emma smirked. I hope you realize you're stuck with me now. Noah chuckled. You think I don't know that? She leaned into him, sighing against his chest. Good. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Noah finally understood. Home wasn't a place, it was her, and this time he wasn't going anywhere. Wow, what a journey! From a chance encounter on a dusty road to a love that neither of them saw coming, Noah and Emma's story is proof that sometimes the best things in life happen when we least expect them. Now, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far this story travels. Which moment in the story touched you the most? Let's talk about it below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. There are plenty more heartwarming, inspiring love stories coming your way. Finally, thank you so much for watching and for being part of this amazing community. Your support means everything. I'll see you in the next story.